Memorial Day flood along the Blanco is one of the worst that we've ever experienced. On the other hand, we're known as Flash Flood Alley.
We've gone through a cycle of devastation here in this area.
I'll just never get used to this. It's just a scene of ruin.
We have recurring serious drought, and every now and then we get these big, serious, devastating floods.
We're caught in this cycle between extreme flooding and drought, and that's exacerbated for us today because we're the fastest growing community in the United States.
Hays County is one of the fastest growing counties in the country, so we've just had a lot more development in this area.
Our house is in the 500-year floodplain.
A lot of people want to have riverfront property. They want to be close to that beautiful stream. But in Texas, about half of the flood damage is attributed to damage that occurs outside of the 100-year floodplain.
One of the most significant impacts of the growth that we're experiencing is the alteration of our riparian areas, which are the natural systems along our rivers and streams.
So we have more and more houses coming in, and that means more roads, more driveways, more pavement, which sheds the water off of our land instead of collecting it.
And so every time there's a new parking lot or the landscape is altered, we potentially increase the impact of these horrible floods when they do come.
Besides the Blanco, the Hill Country is home to numerous streams and rivers, feeding into 6 catchment basins, prone to flash flooding thanks to steep, sloping limestone and in some cases granite terrain. Left alone, natural riparian zones of tall, deep-rooted grasses, shrubs, and trees can not only help reduce some of the destructive force of typical flood events, but trap floodwaters in the alluvial water table and ensure continued stream flow during periodic droughts.
The riparian area actually helps deal with both of those extremes.
According to riparian expert Steve Nelly and others, the Blanco River flood of 2015 was so massive that it was sure to do damage. Still, healthy riparian areas can help buffer the destructiveness of most flood events.
A healthy riparian floodplain is full of dense vegetation. It physically helps to slow that water down.
It serves to slow down floodwaters. It serves to stabilize banks. It serves to increase recharge into the ground as opposed to accelerating runoff. And all of those negative issues are magnified when riparian vegetation is removed and replaced with something else.
Over time, nature builds a protective buffer along stream banks, composed of a variety of native plants and grasses. During droughts, root systems deepen to reach lower water tables, building reinforcing structure for banks and stream beds and buffering those same banks during floods, helping catch sediments to grow succeeding generations of plants. Unfortunately, the first thing many people do when they buy riverfront property is cut down those native plants and install urban landscapes for a better view of the water.
It's typically best to just leave it natural because the natural trees and vegetation are there and have been created by millions of years of evolution of floods and droughts along that stream.
The Memorial Day weekend flood got rolling with 15 inches of rain over 48 hours falling on Chris Hale's Norco Ranch in Kendall County near the headwaters of the Blanco.
The riparian conditions make an enormous difference.
Although the flood crest was much higher and more destructive many miles downstream, when the river began overflowing its banks here, the established riparian vegetation did its job of slowing down the water and capturing debris and sediment. A few weeks later, the river here was back to normal.
We have such good, thick riparian vegetation that it did its job of catching debris, and now it's taken some of that debris and saved it and parked it, and it'll decompose and it'll do nothing but enrich the riparian conditions going forward.
Deposition and erosion are natural parts of the flood regime, and it's what helps a river to grow new vegetation. Rivers change, they're very dynamic.
And the best way to provide a safe environment for those dynamic waters is to let as much native riparian vegetation grow as tall and bushy as possible.